Edward Brown, host of the Best of Investing, here to remind you to tune in this week on Saturday at 8 p.m. Our guest is going to be Patrick Grimes. You're not going to want to miss this show. That's the Best of Investing on Saturday at 8 p.m. Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. And that certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Today, we do have a special guest, someone who's been on our show before, mortgage advisor Ed Diaz. Ed, welcome to The Best of Investing again.
And the crowd goes wild. It's been a while. It was great to see you and reconnect, Edward. Certainly. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. So I got to make a little plug for you here because you're one of the few guys I know who, when when you say you're going to do something, you do it right away. But you have so many contacts that you're always looking to promote other people and help other people. And I think that's really good because you're not just, hi, I'm Ed. What can you do for me? No. And by the way, audience, he's an Ed and I'm an Ed. So you hear the difference.
Yes.
No, you're always looking to do a collaboration. So, I really appreciate that as just a.
Oh, absolutely. We believe in the giver's gain model and the win-win situation.
Exactly. Yeah, because you're constantly out there, doing networking and various events and all that.
Yes. I never take my foot off the pedal, Edward.
No, that is true. And I've known you now for 10 years, at least.
North of that, yeah.
North of that, yeah. Both of us kind of.
It's been a while, man. It just goes fast. Oh, yeah, man. We got them. We got them all.
We got them all, absolutely. All right, so.
We collect them all.
All right, so first of all, for the audience who doesn't know you, give us a little background about yourself.
Yeah, so I got into the mortgage business. Big shout out to my friend David. In 2001, he decided, him and the family that he had married into decided they wanted to restart a mortgage bank. So he calls me up, of course. Then I was a financial advisor, but he decided, that this would be such a great fit for you, Ed. I know you have a love for people and making a difference in creating legacy wealth. I'm telling you, we do this in what we do. So he kept hounding me until one day I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a year. Well, it's almost 25. The longest year ever, Edward. So that's kind of how I got into the mortgage business. But, I've always been one of these kind of humble servants, and on a serious note. Yeah. I started out, my first client was my mom, right? Just so backwards, right? Reteaching her money messages as a child. Just because I started, I didn't grow up with a dad, so I would read a lot. I'd read a lot about different successful people, and certain themes always keep coming up, right? And so I just took that in and absorbed it and internalized it, and then tested it on my mom, and lo and behold, I'm like, man, I'm pretty good at this. I think I should take this on the road. So it's become a road show ever since. 36 years later.
Wow, that's great. So let's see here. We got about another 45 seconds before we have to cut to a break. I'm guessing you're seeing quite a change in the marketplace over the last 25 years for mortgages.
Yeah, I've been through a lot of cycles, right? As you have as well, Edward. And the pandemic did a number, right? And then 2020 comes around and it becomes a boom. And the average buyer right now in the United States is 35 years old, so they've never seen a cycle. They just really believe that 2.5% 30-year mortgages is a reality that should continue on into infinity, right? When in fact, that's not the case. If you look at history, last, 30, 45 years, the average rate has been exactly where we're at now.
Yeah, about 6% or so, right?
Yeah, 6 to 7%. That's right.
Interesting. Okay, tell you what, we're going to cut to our first commercial break here. Before we do, I do want to make a mention for the Tahoe Lakeshore Lodge. It's the end of summer, time to go to Tahoe. And they have hundreds of beachfront, hundreds of feet, hundreds of yards, whatever you want to call it. Lots of space, lots of beachfront space. Check them out at TahoeLakeshoreLodge.com. All right, here's our first trivia question. The winner of this trivia question is going to win that tanning certificate, which, by the way, is worth over $100. How high Can bottlenose dolphins jump? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate from Tambella Tanning Salon. All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, along with my special guest, Ed Diaz, who is a mortgage advisor. First trivia question, how high can bottlenose dolphins jump? What do you think, Ed?
I'm going to say 40 feet.
That's a pretty strong dolphin. It's actually about 20 feet.
Is it 20? It's double. Okay.
Right, yeah.
I was
and again,
twice the amount of excited for them.
Again, you've always been an optimist, so that's where that answer came from.
Look, it even shows up in my trivia.
Exactly, that's right. All right, so let's. Also, I do want to make another mention here for Navi Appliance, Navi Appliance. They're good people. They do good work. They're on time. They answer the phone. They're in the Bay Area. 707-484-5766, or go to naviappliance.com. That's naviappliance.com. All right, so Ed, let's talk about the mortgage business right now. It's interesting. You mentioned that the average buyer is 35 years old, but I was hearing a statistic that a lot of people in their 30s can't afford, that's like they're in a situation where they're never able to afford a house. So it kind of sort of goes against that. Maybe
I know it
like
does. Now, keep in mind that this is throughout the country, right? So what I'm seeing as a trend is that the buyers who are in their 30s, even if they make really good money, Edward, they don't have a lot of savings because of taxes and lifestyle, right? The Tesla, the $9,000 dog, all those kind of things. And what I'm seeing is that the parents are coming in with the gift money. So that is what skews the number. So the 30-year-olds that are buying, which are the majority, believe it or not, it's pretty much, that's what it is. It's mom and dad.
It's gift money. Wasn't there a time not too long ago when the banks they wouldn't consider gift money as like allowed, so to speak, or
those are all old Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac kind of regulations, and then they went into, well, it only has to be an immediate family member, mom and dad. Now they soften it even more, where it could be a family member, like a cousin, right? That sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, they really shouldn't care as long as they look at what's the remaining balance of the loan. Can the borrower afford to make the payments, right? Because if they buy $1 million house and parents give them $850,000, now you're only talking about $150,000 loan.
I couldn't agree with you more. There's a lot of things in the mortgage business, as in I'm sure a lot of industries, that don't really make sense. There's not a lot of common sense in it. So common sense isn't common. I think that was invented for the mortgage business, by the way. But you're right. Who cares where the money comes from, as long as it's not coming from laundered money or, drug sales, right? If it's coming from an honest place, what do you care?
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. What are the ratios nowadays that the banks are looking at? And let's kind of back up. Let's back up for just a minute, because this may feed into this. So you don't work for any one bank. You're completely independent, right?
Yeah, I am independent, so I'm able to pick from a lot of different options. Correct.
Okay. How many different lenders are you associated with?
Gosh, I couldn't tell you, but we're in the hundreds.
Hundreds. Okay.
Yeah.
So for the average person who is looking for the best loan, if they go to you, they could, you'll look through the hundreds of options and figure out, based on the ratios and all that. Okay. And before I forget, we're going to do this a couple of times, but how do people get a hold of you if they want to get some good mortgage advice?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is really through email. Just shoot me an email, ed@eddiazloans.com. So it's ed, E-D, at EDDIAZLOANS.com.
Good. And I know you've helped people who I know, so that's been you've been a very good source for them. I always like to see the people like you who really look after their clients, really want to do what's best for the client. That's always, because then you get the
100%.
referrals. Yeah.
No,
Um,
absolutely. And that's, I'm not beholden to the banks, I'm beholden to the client.
yeah, exactly. Okay. And
We're always going to do good loans, so the banks don't have to worry, right? But at
yeah,
the same time, I'm
no,
looking after my client.
good point. So right now, the average 30-year loan is 6.5%, or what is it
Yeah,
right now?
remember there's two ends of the conventional loan limits. There's a lower loan limit, which is, let's just call it 806,000, and then on the upper end, it's 1,209,000 in the high priced areas. On the lower end, you're going to be in the low sixes. In the upper end, you're in the mid to high sixes. Yeah, depending on, of course, things like credit scores, right? Is it a condo versus a single family residence? Down payment, right? These kind of things. Adjustments that are made based on everybody's
Or
particular
based on what's
situation.
going on in the political realm. This is my third.
Well,
Uh,
yeah.
this is my third personal residence. Yeah.
No, yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, the politics do affect. I mean, look, it's not only the politics, it's not only the politics of the United States, it's the politics and the economies of the world because of technology. We've really become one big ball. It's one
Yeah.
big ball made out of string, and we're the string.
Interesting. Okay. Tell you what, let's go to our next trivia question here. Yeah, because that other one was a little bit like, who knows what the number is for a
I
bottlenose?
clearly don't know dolphins, Edward.
Yeah, yeah. That one's
Throw me a lifeline here.
sort of a guesstimate. Okay. Which is the deadliest hurricane in U.S. history? And I think they are guessing that by, well, they say deadliest, so it's death, not the cost of building and all that. So we're talking about people dying. And the winds got up to 140 miles an hour, which it's funny because I know that there's been some hurricanes that have exceeded that, but this one was what's the deadliest hurricane in U.S. history? All right, that's our trivia question. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. You're listening to the best of investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to the best of investing. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Ed Diaz of Ed Diaz Loans. He's a mortgage advisor. All right, second trivia question. The deadliest hurricane in U.S. history. See if you can give me the year, but where was it?
Oh, I'm gonna say it's Andrew in Florida.
No, that probably was a good one, though. The good guess.
Hmm.
No, it was Galveston
I was
in
in it, by the way.
1900. Where were you? Wow.
I was.
It's funny. I was on a cruise ship like a couple of years later, and the
Hmm.
crew said that they went through Hurricane Andrew, and they said what we went through on the shore on the seas was worse. You can imagine how many people were sick on that one. It's kind of crazy. But at
No, I don't
1900,
even want to imagine it.
somewhere between 8 to 12,000 people died. And if you go down to Galveston and do a little tour thing,
Hmm.
there's a house where you can see where the water they never touched the wallpaper or whatever, and it's like 8 feet high inside the house, the
Whoa.
water line. Yeah, pretty crazy there. Yeah,
Wow. What
I'm
year
sure
was this
they
again, Edward?
1900 in Galveston.
1900.
Yeah,
Got it. Yeah, I think I
isn't that
was
crazy?
negative. How old was I?
Yeah, yeah,
Negative
exactly.
68. Yeah.
Yeah, -68. All right. Um, Now, are people doing only fixed mortgages nowadays? Or is there any advantage to adjustable rate mortgages that you can see?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I will tell you my personal experiences. The majority of people still want the security of a 30-year because they've seen so much volatility, so they're really
Yeah.
risk adverse. Not that they haven't been in the past, but sprinkled in between that, there are more seasoned people asking. So, what are the rates on adjustables? That maybe we can go with that to squeeze out a little bit more purchase price because it's also competitive, even though there's more inventory.
Gotcha. And so what are you seeing the delta, so to
The
speak,
delta,
between yeah.
yeah, I would say the delta on, and let me just get specific at a 5 and a 7 year. I'm going to say probably between a quarter to 3/8 better.
Yeah. Because say
Yeah,
when it gets to be like a half a point, I can see an advantage. Because the other part of it is you
right,
don't know how long
exactly.
how things are
Yeah.
going to be. Now
But people are
there's
buying down rate with points. I will say that, Edward. They're still
Gotcha.
doing it.
Okay. Give us an example of what that would look like.
Yeah, so for example, so a point, everybody, is 1 point is equal to 1% of your loan amount. So what would happen is this, the trend I'm seeing is that because there's more inventory and houses are sitting, buyers are now negotiating not only price, but they're negotiating for the seller to give them a credit so that they can use that money to buy down the rate. So instead of getting, let's just say hypothetically, instead of 6.5, they're using a point to buy it down to 6 1/8 or 6 1/4, as an example.
Interesting. That's pretty astute by the buyers to negotiate that. I mean, money is money, but it's a good way to help them,
Yeah.
especially if they're getting close to the limit of what they can buy house wise, and they say, well, I'd love to buy your house, but I can't quite afford it, unless we knock the interest rate down a bit. And the way we do that is give me a credit on it. So there's talk about Jerome Powell lowering the rates a little bit, maybe 1/4%, maybe 1/2, who knows. I know there's definitely some political stuff going on. If he were to lower the rates, how would that affect mortgage rates, do you think?
Great question.
Sometimes,
So let me dispel some myths here. So when Jerome Powell and the Fed, quote unquote, talks about lowering rates, it is not mortgage rates directly, folks. It is what's called the federal funds rate. What is that? It's the rate at which banks lend money to each other overnight. But we're not talking about $10 that your uncle gave you. We're talking about billions of dollars overnight, right? So the spreads are huge. However, that said, does it affect mortgage rates? Does it have a spillover effect? Of course it does, because everything's emotional. Why does Apple stock go up and down in the last 10 minutes that we've been talking, right? It's mostly emotion. Right,
yeah.
right. So what you need to look at is more of what the bond market is, right? That's why you always hear the same conversation of mortgage rates. You'll hear the thing called the 10-year treasury note. That's because bonds are what affect mortgage rates, because they're longer term investments, because a mortgage is what? 30 years, right? Even if you're getting an adjustable, it's still amortized over 30 years. So that's how it works.
Gotcha.
But there is a spillover effect.
Okay. I mean, so if the Fed lowers 1/4%, generally, what kind of spillover do you see? Generally,
I would say think of it as probably half, maybe about 1/8 of a point, maybe depending on the day. Now, keep in mind that it's not just the Fed that's affecting it. It's also other things like inflation, like core PCE today came out at what, 2.8%. The Fed really wants to see 2%, but because of the political climate, and because of jobs, right? Because the job market isn't as strong as people say, then they're willing to now lower rates. Because keep in mind, guys, this is the rule of thumb. Good news is bad news for rates, and bad news is good news for rates.
Yeah, it's like interest rates go up, bond prices go down.
That's right.
Same thing along the same line. Okay. All right. You know what? We got one more trivia question to ask you here. I didn't know the answer to this one. What was New York Times Square originally called? And they changed it in 1904. That doesn't really give you too much of a hint. That's just more of a trivia part. So New York Times Square was originally called something before 1904 when they changed it to Times Square, New York Times Square. That's our trivia question. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. This is a hard one because I never heard of this one before. But that's okay. We always like to keep the audience in suspenders. All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Edward Brown here, along with Ed Diaz. Third trivia question. What was New York Times Square originally called?
I'm just going to throw this out there. Wall Street Square.
That's not a bad guess, but it was actually, it used to be called Longacre Square, and they changed it in 1904. Longacre, yeah. They changed it in 1904 to honor the New York Times move to the area and construction of the Times Tower. So they decided that, they called it Times Square. I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay.
Well, I knew it was correlated to New York Times.
You got it figured, yeah. Okay, we do have a silly joke of the week, so I'm going to give you one quick silly joke of the week here. So my teachers told me that I'd never amount to much because I procrastinate so much, and I told them, just you wait. All right. But I'm sorry.
Right?
Okay. So, a couple of things. One, where do you think you see the market going with the rates? And let's give some advice out to the clients or clients, potential clients, listeners to the
Yeah,
show.
absolutely. So where rates are going, look, I'm no genie, but I am a left-brain person who watches technical data and analysts all day long. And here's what I think, looking at everything and where the economy is at. I think we're going to continue to see a softening labor market. That is going to push rates down. I think
Okay.
we'll be in the high fives by 2027. I just think it's going to be a slow burn, though, Edward. It's not going to be something fast like we all like. Look, I don't have a lot of patience myself, folks, but here's the
Yeah.
thing: is it's going to force you to, because I think in the beginning of 2027 we'll see a huge boom in refis, because I think we'll see upper fives. I do. And AI, even though they say it doesn't, it does. It decimates a lot of jobs, especially entry level.
Gotcha. You know,
Now,
I wonder how many people were like me who uh, refinanced. I got it like I picked it almost at the low. I got lucky during
wow,
COVID. And so I got a
nice.
really, really, really low rate fixed. And I did a 15-year fully amortized because the rate was so cheap that I was able to do that. A guy like me, unless I'm going to move, I just can't see refinancing. So there's got to be a lot of people like me who are not moving, and maybe they'll do a HELOC to improve their house or something. But it's just too costly to change from the current rate, the old rate that I had a few years ago into a new rate. So are you seeing a lot of people like that too?
It's the majority. It's not just what I'm seeing, it's the statistics. I think something like 90% of people who hold a mortgage right now are holding it at 3% or below. So, yes, the
Yeah.
people who are selling right now are ones that have to, and the ones who are refinancing, it's because they have to. So, an example, let's say you have a 2.5% mortgage, right? But you have 100 grand in credit card debt at an average of 26%. Well, maybe you're looking at things a little differently, right? Yes, you might
Yeah.
transition into a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, but if I do an analysis of the blended rate, it may,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it does always, but it may make sense for you just to do the whole thing and just consolidate everything, right?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Let's talk about some advice for clients. Or clients, you keep saying clients. Audience, for the audience.
Hey, we're projecting, right? We're projecting that they will become clients. So here's what I say to you. Right now, because there's so much inventory, we as buyers have the most leverage and negotiating power now than in the last 5 years. So go
Okay.
out there and negotiate price and negotiate for the seller to give you some closing costs, some credits. Take your mortgage interest deduction, take the property tax deduction, which, by the way, congratulations, everyone. SALT, which is the state and local taxes,
Yep.
went from giving you $10,000 of being able to write off on property taxes. Now it's been quadrupled to 40,000. So take
Mhm.
advantage of that, because the majority of your payment, of your mortgage payment a month, is the interest and also the property taxes. The first 7 to 8 years of every mortgage is pretty much all interest, because the banks aren't dumb. They want their money up front, right? But that's deductible. So take the tax deduction and start to build equity, called what I call legacy wealth. Otherwise, your landlord's going to do it. That's why my slogan is, let me help you fire your landlord. Right?
Exactly. Okay. And then what about for people like what advice about getting all of their ducks in a row? Obviously, if they can make your life easy, it'll help. Um, but there's really not too much negotiation that the borrower can do, right? I mean, it's going to be based on his FICO score and income, right? It's not and
Yeah.
tax returns too, right?
Yeah, well, look, every lender is going to look primarily at four areas. They're going to look at assets, how much money do you have? They're going to look at your credit scores. And by the way, credit scores, you want to have a solid 740 and above, because that's where the VIP lounge is. You know, the really cool kids are at 780 and above. I'm just letting you know. And then the next, they're going to look at income, right? Are you a W-2 employee or are you self-employed? And then they're going to look at debt. What kind of debt are you taking into the new home ownership experience? Like maybe a car payment, right? Maybe student loans that are a bit longer. I do all the heavy lifting to find out what your maximum purchase price is based on those four areas. But if there's one that's deficient, for example, like your credit, then I'm going to give you tips on what to do to improve that credit score. When it comes to income, we've streamlined everything so much that if you're a W-2 employee, I only need the last 2 months of bank statements. I do not need your pay stubs. I don't need your tax returns. I don't need your W-2s.
Okay. That's great. Well, tell you what, we're going to cut to our next break here. We don't have a trivia question, but when the best investing comes back, stay with us, audience, because we do have some closing comments, our thoughts for the day, and a little bit more advice from Ed Diaz. Ed, give out your information one more time before we get to break.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. So just email me, ed@eddiaz with a Z, loans, plural.com.
Very good. Stay with us, audience. Close. The best of investing. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, mortgage advisor Ed Diaz. No trivia question, but Ed, what is it like for the audience advice to give them to get all their ducks in a row?
Yeah, oddly enough, or interestingly enough, Edward, the very first step to buying a home, you know what it is? It is to get your psychology correct first.
Okay.
Train your brain to start thinking as if you're already a homeowner. Because whether people believe it or not, buying a home is a sacrifice, number one. But number two, it is an investment because that's what equity is about and getting the tax write-offs. And when I say it kind of funny way, but I'm also being serious, it is time to fire your landlord. Because why do you think people invest and become landlords? Because there's a benefit to it. Now the question is, are you building legacy wealth? How are we going to do this? Number one, make sure you're pulling a credit report every 6 months. By the way, when you pull your own credit report, you can pull it 100 times a day. It does not lower your scores because it's coded as a self-view. So go to Experian.com, which in my opinion is the most accurate online credit report that you can pull. It's not going to lower your scores. Or go to Annual Credit Report and get your free one once a year, right? Take a look at it, analyze it. By the way, reach out to me. I'm an expert in credit. I'll go over it with you and give you tips at no charge. Let's take a look at it. That's number one. Number two is, look, if you haven't asked your employer for a raise in a long time, why? If you're working that hard, go ask for one. The worst thing they could do is say no, but at least you're on their radar, right? Show ambition, because that extra bump in pay can also help you buy a house. Now, if you cannot buy a house by yourself, let's just say that you don't qualify. Well, look, you're not the only one. Why don't you partner up maybe with a friend or a family member and go buy a duplex, or buy a duplex on your own, right? Because then you can leverage the rents of the other property or the other unit. These are things that people don't think about, right? So that's another creative idea. And then on the other end is, work on your debt, right? Start out with the smallest one, get rid of it. Get rid of it. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Same thing is how do you eat your debt? One payment at a time, right? Start with the small debts.
So you say get rid of the lowest one rather than the one that's got the highest interest?
Yes, because it's the quickest way, right? You're getting rid of it, and then you move on to the next one. Because it's the quickest way to accelerate just having smaller balances. And by the way, guys, there's a 30% rule on credit cards, right? Anytime your balance to credit limit ratio is greater than 30%, your score starts to go down. So if you're paying off the smaller ones, that's going to increase the quickest on your credit scores as well. So you have the double benefit.
Good, very, very good advice. Now I have both. I got I think I've got a Barclays card, and they give me a free FICO score. So that's pretty accurate too, isn't it? Because I can.
Yes, it is because it's coming from Experian. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Experian's the best one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Because it's nice to get these for free, so we don't.
And sometimes, by the way, if you didn't know this, your bank will give you free credit monitoring and a free credit report service. So if you don't have it, go ask. Whether it's B of A, Wells, Chase, it doesn't matter. Go ask. Yeah.
You know what? They give me a free credit score, but not the actual report. That's the difference.
But you can go to
And
annual credit report and get the report.
yeah, good advice. Okay. Ed Diaz from Ed Diaz Loans, independent mortgage advisor. Give out your information one more time, and then we're going to cut out for today with our thoughts for the day.
Well, thank you very much. Again, once again, guys, I'm here to serve. Anytime you get a free consultation, let's talk. I'm not salesy. I'm just here to give you advice. And you can reach me at Ed Diaz with a Z, loans with an S at the end, .com.
Very good. All right. Here's our thoughts for today. So I used to be a narcissist, but look at me now. And did you know that insanity is hereditary? You get it from your children. Yeah, I'll tell you that.
I'll tell
Okay,
my son.
Oh, your son, exactly. Audience, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.